Dramatic new developments tonight in the Caylee Anthony murder investigation. The slain toddler's grandfather, George Anthony, was released from the hospital last night, 11 days after he was found in a seedy motel, apparently trying to take his own life. Wife Cindy Anthony picked him up and reportedly brought him straight back home. His lawyer says his therapy will continue on an outpatient basis, and it begs the world to give this man privacy. But will he get it? Should George really be headed back to that madness this soon, or should he get the heck out of Dodge? We will discuss that. Plus, the public relations firm for Casey Anthony's defense says it's being paid by an unidentified family. Who is this family? And could they also be paying for Casey's high-profile defense team? And finally, more questions about a memorial service for little Caylee. Where exactly are the remains right now, and when can we expect a proper memorial? So much to get to tonight. Give me a holler. 1-877-JVM-SAYS. That's 1-877-586-7297. But first, I want to bring in my fantastic panel. Sharon Lyko, a family lawyer and criminal defense attorney, plus Dr. Gaby Cora, psychiatrist, and Paul Callan, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor, as well as Amy Green, a freelance journalist who has covered this case for the Associated Press. Amy, what is the very latest?
Well, Jane, the headline today is that George Anthony, as you know, is home from the hospital. He was hospitalized 11 days after he sent text messages to family members indicating he might commit suicide. Cindy picked him up at the hospital yesterday evening and brought him home. He's home now. The family's attorney says that he's doing well and asks for privacy from the media and from the public.
Now, we know that little Caylee's remains were found almost 2 months ago, and she still has not been properly laid to rest. This leaves the big question, where exactly are the remains? We actually wanted to put an end to that speculation. We reached out to the Anthony family lawyer to clear it all up. This is what he said. Caylee's remains are still at the funeral home. So that we've gotten cleared away. Reports just in as we went to air that now that George is home, he and Cindy are trying to plan the funeral. My question to psychiatrist Gaby Cora, will a funeral be the best thing for George? Will it give him the closure that he seems to desperately need?
Well, closure is extremely important for anyone who has gone through such a terrible and catastrophic-like event. In this case, this gentleman has faced very devastating losses, not only of his grandchild, but also of his daughter. And now he has to recover through this very difficult situation. So the funeral can give him some, solace in all of what he's going through right now.
You know, I have to ask about this whole reason why the remains have not been released from the defense to the family for burial. And part of it, Sharon Lyko, is that they're waiting for all the forensic discovery to come in from the prosecution. The defense says they want to look at that forensic discovery before they hand off the remains because they might have to do some new tests. But isn't that a process that could take months given the complexity of this case?
Well, yes and no. Once the results come back, I mean, there's only certain tests that they're probably going to want to do. So it's not going to take that long for them to make that decision. They just want to make sure that they have all of the information they're going to need. I think once the reports come back from the prosecution, they ought to know within a couple of weeks what other follow-up.
That's what I'm saying, a couple of weeks. I mean, the thing is, Paul Callan, that this entire community and indeed the nation has been so emotionally invested in this case and this tragedy of this beautiful little girl who sadly was found murdered with duct tape over her mouth, that a lot of people are clamoring for closure in the form of a funeral and a memorial service. There's going to be a public memorial service. There's going to be a private funeral. There's a lot of controversy surrounding it, and everybody's saying it should be rushed. It should be rushed. But think about this for a second. JonBenet Ramsey was buried 5 days after her body was found, according to all the reports that we checked tonight. Now, that is an unsolved case. It's perhaps the most famous unsolved case in the nation. So, Paul, maybe waiting isn't a bad idea, given that she was buried very quickly and the case was never solved.
Yeah, you know, Jane, I agree with you. I think that waiting, I mean, it's a sad thing for the family. It's a sad thing for the country watching this. But bear in mind that examining the remains is very, very important for the prosecution, but also for the defense, because one of the key things here is estimating time of death. Was Caylee killed in June before her mother reported her as missing? This examination is a complex examination that has to be done by pathologists. There are also botanists involved because they're looking at some of the vegetation that seemed to be intermingled with the remains. It's a complex process. And you know something? The prosecutors don't want the defendants to come in later on and say, hey, we didn't get a chance to examine the remains, and therefore a jury can't trust the estimation of when the body was found. So let's let the experts do a thorough exam here. We've got a murder trial on the horizon, and we want to make sure the right person is convicted.
Yeah, and it's far on the horizon. We heard in recent days, listening to courtroom chatter, that this trial is not expected to get underway till at least the end of this year, possibly next year, which is really a long time to wait for the ultimate closure, which is the determination of guilt or innocence of Casey Anthony. You know, there is so much mystery still surrounding Jose Baez's spokesman named Todd Black. I say that in quotes. Press Corps Media, his peer firm, released this statement. You got to follow this very closely because it's all very complicated, guys. We assigned security names for insurance and security purposes, as with Todd Black, a security name which has been used in rotation by 3 different staff members on this case. Now, some published reports are claiming that one of the 3 Todd Blacks is a guy named Gil Cabot. That has not been confirmed, and I want to make that clear. Cabot, though, was convicted of attempting to extort $30,000 from a television journalist by threatening to publish nude photos of her in a magazine. Now, Press Corps Media had this to say. Whether Mr. Cabot also participated in that rotation makes no difference. My question to you, Sharon Lyko, is, does it make a difference to the defense team's image? If one of the 3-headed Todd Blacks is confirmed to be Gil Cabot, would it matter that an ex-con is speaking on behalf of Casey Anthony's lawyer?
No, let's remember the trial is about the murder of this girl, not about the validity of the defense team. This has gone completely wild. I mean, who cares? So what? If he was the private investigator for the defense team, yeah, then you'd care because the credibility of that person in that firm would either annihilate you or help your case. So he's the spokesperson for Mr. Baez. Mr. Baez made a bad choice.
You know,
that's what I'm saying.
I have to disagree with
Sharon. Doesn't matter.
I have to disagree with Sharon very strongly on this. You know, if Baez was putting together a good defense, the thing he's trying to do is convince the public of the innocence of his client. You don't convince the public of. You don't convince.
This is not a trial to the public by the media.
It is because
that's the problem in society.
Let Paul
TV
finish.
needs to be removed from the courtroom.
Because jurors are selected from the public. The pool is a public pool, and ultimately he's looking to convince jurors that his client's innocent. And you don't do that by hiring a convicted felon to do the PR for your client. So I'd be a little careful about what PR agency I'm hiring.
Well, look, let me just say this, Sharon. I agree with Paul. Now, Jose Baez was asked about all this, and he said, quote, Todd Black still works for us, and he has done, in my opinion, a very good job. He's still referring to him as one person when we already know he's 3 people. That doesn't do a lot for Jose Baez's credibility. And I've defended Jose Baez many times. On this, I think he's got a problem.
Yeah, but the case is not going to be determined as to whether the guilt or innocence was proved by the media.
Of course not. But if you're going to hire, a PR firm,
you have a right to a trial by a jury of your peers, or you have a right to be executed and sacrificed by the media.
Okay, wait a second. Let Paul have a say now.
If you're going to hire a PR firm, you're hiring them for one reason, to get a favorable message out about your client. And what's the message that we have now? Hey, the PR guy's a criminal. I'd say that didn't work out very well for Baez. So if that's an example of how he puts together a compelling case for his client, time for a new lawyer.
And
that's what I say.
This is what I have to say.
In jury selection, don't you think it's going to be relevant if a juror says, oh, yeah, I've already made up my mind because I've seen CNN and they convinced me that, you know, the grandfather...
just leave CNN out of it. Everybody's covering the story under the sun.
Okay,
and they're asking for a change of venue because everybody, all the local stations down there cover this full time. They have reporters assigned to covering this 24/7.
I'm not picking on CNN.
All right, just let's hang on. Let's take a deep breath.